used to be that a farmer had little information about market conditions and price trends for his products. Without this information, he was in the dark. He had good years, sure, when the market showed a real demand and the farmer had a fair supply. He made a real profit. But consistent profits were hard to come by. The individual farmer had almost no knowledge of the big picture. He was producing blind for an unknown market. This was a system of fluctuating gluts and scarcities based on ignorance of market supplies and requirements. And then there are the unpredictables of nature that are a part of farm life. Storms, floods, drought, and pestilence strike without warning. Some crops never reach markets. Markets are changing. Food packaging methods change. The tastes of the American family change. New foods appear on the grocery list. New markets are born. Making ready for the unforeseen is a part of the farmer's creed. So he patches his roof. He fights the weather with better preparation. Disease and pestilence he fights with silence. But best of all, he now has a means of predicting and planning for the marketing of his crops.
That's why your grandfather and Uncle Lonnie are fixing the roof. They're getting ready for everything that makes up a year. Well, I figure this will make a pretty good cover for my magazine assignment. What do you think? Don't answer that.
Hey, it seems to me you're putting that shingle on the wrong way, Lonnie. At least it looks like it from here. Move over so I can get a good look.
Look, Dad, you're holding me up. I'm doing all right without any help.
Grandpa and Uncle Lonnie sure make a lot of noise, don't they?
10 years ago, I'd have had that roof done in half the time you're taking.
10 years ago, you fell off the roof. Mom hasn't allowed you up here since.
Is that so? I think you're spending too much time posing for your brother. There's work to do here.
Just a few more minutes on the roof, and then all the time the artist needs.
Maybe you'd like to forget about the roof altogether and just pose for your brother.
Frankie, run and tell your grandfather and uncle I'm finished for today. If this keeps up, we're liable to see mayhem. Go on.
Grandpa, Uncle Lonnie, you can come down now. Dad says he's finished for today.
What the tarnation? Does he think we patched that roof just to please him? Tell him we'll quit when we're finished. Besides, my pose was just getting right for the picture. Artists sure don't work much.
Pays pretty good, Pa. Can't beat the hours.
Pay no attention to your uncle, boy. And you might tell your dad I'll put him to work painting the barn if he has so little to do.
Grandpa, Dad told me that's why he moved to the city, to get away from painting that barn.
Oh, he did he?
That's what he said.
Well, he hasn't made much progress. He's still painting it. I tell you, Frank, I don't know how you make a living with that box of paints. It seems you hardly do any work at all. And what's more, how do you know whether your paintings are going to sell or not? Aren't you taking a chance just painting what you feel like?
I don't just paint what I feel like. I'm a commercial artist. I paint on assignment. It's creative, sure. But I have to study my market closely too, Dad. By the time I sit down at my easel, I know what they'll buy.
Still seems rather unpredictable to me.
Is this a farmer speaking, calling my rewards unpredictable?
What do you mean, is this a farmer speaking? How do you know they're going to like what you've done? Maybe you'll get your picture all finished and somebody at the magazine will say he doesn't like it.
How do you know folks like what you've done, Dad? That's a chance we all take. Now, I've built myself a reputation as an illustrator of farm life. I know what they're buying and who's buying it. So I channel my working and thinking in that direction.
What he means, Dad, is that there's unpredictables in any business. But by staying close to his field and surveying the market for his work, he cuts down his percentage of error.
Some of Dad's best pictures have been turned down, if you ask me.
Well, I don't recall asking you. But it's partially true. Sometimes too many artists paint farm life. We flood the market, you might say. That's when I change my style and go to painting city life, till I feel there's a new demand for the thing I do best. You've got to be flexible, Dad.
Now the truth comes out. You see, Lonnie, he doesn't have such a bed of roses in the city after all. I told him when he left the farm he'd have a tough row to hoe.
You're the one that was just saying an artist's life is easy. I never claimed that.
One thing we know, Lonnie, people always have to eat. There'll always be a market for our sweat and toil, even if they don't have to look at pictures.
Yes, Pa, that's true. People will always have to eat. But you know, they'll always look at pictures, too. The problems of the artist and the farmer are very much alike. You see, in order for Frank to get the best price for his work, he must pick his subject carefully, then sell it at the right place at the right time. Now, we want to get the best price for our work, right? So we have to select our crop or livestock, and then we have to know when and where to sell them at top price.
There I go with my big mouth again. Now we'll listen to a lecture by the pencil farmer. You know something, Frank? Ever since he became a father and he and Edie moved over to the Washburn farm, this fellow sits up half the night looking over books and poring over Outlook and market reports. You know what I call him? I call him the Midnight Oil Agriculturalist.
That's pretty sharp, Grandpa. The Midnight Oil Agriculturalist.
Listen, son, I'll tell you when you're old enough to join men's conversations.
Leave the boy alone. He's got a real keen sense of humor.
Here, Frank, take this in the house and be careful.
Yeah, I'll take these, Lonnie.
Hasn't changed much, has he, Frank?
Oh, he's mellowed a little. But he's still pretty stubborn. You're gonna have to teach him something about marketing?
He knows a lot more about it than he'll admit. He likes to say he works by instinct. It comes a little harder to me. I stick pretty close to the figures the Department of Agriculture puts out. Which reminds me, it's just about time for the daily market report. Well, the county agent usually gives a summary about this time.
Look for an increase in dairy feed prices a little earlier this year due to pasture conditions. Here's the way the Department of Agriculture sizes up the soybean situation. The government says we're going to have one of the largest crops on record, and the kind of prices you can expect will depend largely on the demand for American soybeans in other countries.
You and Hazel coming over to our place tonight?
Sure, we'd like to. See you after dinner.
Okay. I'll be doing some book work, so come on over anytime.
Okay, fine. See you later, huh?
Can hardly keep my eyes open, Lonnie. What time did you say they were coming?
Oh, they'll be along shortly. Those three children of yours have you about worn out?
What do you mean, yours?
Okay, then ours.
I never knew triplets could be so different. The way they react to food, to naps, the way they play. You'd think they'd all be the same, but they're not.
Who'd think they'd all be the same? I learned a long time ago that every individual was different, including babies. But then that's what makes life interesting, Edie, the unpredictables.
Yes, well, I'd like to be able to predict a few things once in a while.
Well, of course, I don't say we can predict everything, but we can do a pretty good job of it if we have the facts. That's all we need. Just give me the facts, ma'am.
Oh?
I'll show you what I mean. Now, first we have the facts. Mom and Dad usually finish dinner about 6:15. Then it'll take 25 minutes to do the dishes. Frank and Hazel will have to sit around for a while before they suggest coming over here. That'll take another 25 minutes. Pa will argue for 5 minutes, and then Mom will make him give in. It'll take 15 minutes to talk Frank Jr. into staying home with the folks. Then it's a 10-minute drive over to our place. It's 7:34 right now. I figure they should be here in about 20 seconds.
Let's see. Lonnie, you are marvelous. You think the unpredictables make life interesting. I think this is much more fun. Hi, come on in. Hello. Anybody home?
Anybody home?
Oh, I bet you didn't think we were ever going to come. No, I knew exactly when you'd be here.
My goodness, how?
My secret.
Come on in, Plow.
Busy, busy,
Oh,
huh?
he's always doing paperwork.
Oh, we got it fixed finally.
I think I'll get him an office job.
Shouting instructions.
What have you been doing?
Yeah, I left
I've
Frankie
been
Jr. with
mending
Mom and
some
Dad.
things here for the
You know,
kids.
he put up a big fuss.
Naturally.
Yes,
He wanted to come along.
Oh, you did?
Worn out. I don't know how to
You
go
fall
through it so
asleep.
fast.
He's running the music there, no?
Just what do you mean, Lonnie? The farmers have pulled themselves out of the dark ages?
Well, I don't say we've solved all of our problems.
However, we have come a long way.
That's right. You see, a farmer used to have very few facts about what other farmers were producing, or about what went on in the world beyond his farm that influenced the demand for his products. He had to guess at his markets and make his production plans in the dark. What other farmers intended to plant or grow was completely unknown to him.
So nobody knew how much corn was being grown or how many hogs and steers had been fed until they got to the market. Then it was too late.
Well, that's right, Frank. It was the old cycle of glut or scarcity. But today, with the help of his county agent, the farmer can keep informed on the market outlook and market trends for his crops. And this information helps him to guide his production plans, oftentimes far in advance. Then, by pooling his information on crops and livestock plans and output with other farmers, a regular feature of today's agriculture, he creates a pretty sound basis for using his land and labor to bring him a reasonable return. Oh, but you're here for a visit, not to discuss farm economics.
You just sit there and keep working and talking. I want to sit here and do a sketch of you sitting at the desk.
Well, you see, Frank, having facts and figures, both long and short range, is, well, it's like having a crystal ball.
You mean like a radar system so you can see what's ahead?
That's right. Now, why do you suppose we chose to expand our dairy operation? You see, when we first started our farm and home management plan, I began studying outlook reports. I went to outlook meetings put on by the county agent. Then I combined the figures on farming with the population growth figures and decided that this country was going to need plenty of milk.
So just to make sure you wouldn't be wrong, you told Edie here to have triplets, huh?
Well, it didn't do any harm. Seriously, though, we know we can rely on our crop and livestock reports because they come from the farmers themselves. In the late winter and early spring, farmers across the nation look over the situation and decide what they are going to plant or raise. Their decisions will be based on their location and the type of their soil. There are more than 600,000 volunteer crop and livestock reporters. Many of these fill out an intentions to plant report, which is mailed to their state agricultural statisticians. The answers are tabulated and projected to give us a complete forecast based on the sampling. Now, this is the long-time outlook for marketing their crops, as communicated in meetings and publications. Later on in the spring, when the crops are actually planted, we get an action report based on this same volunteer information. The production picture then becomes clearer. Now the crop is in, but we still get monthly crop reports through the Agricultural Marketing Service and state agricultural agencies. Also, outlook information and daily market reports appear in the newspapers, are heard over the radio, and in rural areas, presented over television. This information is supplied to the farmers and to anyone else interested in the marketing or handling of farm products, including the consumer, so that everyone concerned with the marketing of farm products will have 20/20 foresight, which is always better than hindsight.
Lonnie, this isn't the first time I've heard about these marketing services. As you know, I've been traveling all over the country doing sketches of farmers for future use. Now, here's a fella down south. This fella's family's been on the same plantation for 3 generations.
Man and boy, I grew cotton on my land for nearly 40 years. When I began looking at the market situation, it appeared as how cotton wasn't too good a bet for me. So I made the change. Now I've got hogs and chickens for the most part, and I'm showing a nice profit.
And here's a man in Jersey, a big truck farmer.
Most of the time, I'm going to plant lots and lots of tomatoes. But this year, I don't know. These are market figures. He just say we already got a plenty of canned tomatoes. So maybe this year I'm going to cut down a little bit. I'm going to take another look, see.
And here's a sketch of a real Yankee, a potato farmer from down Maine.
I grow the best crop of potatoes I know how. But each year, I got to make up my mind. I got to study market reports before I can make up my mind whether to sell them quick or wait a spell. It works out if I'm lucky.
Well, I guess you see what this marketing information does for us, Frank. And you too, Hazel. It takes away a lot of the guesswork. We know the information is reliable because it's based on the experience of farmers and comes to us from our federal and state departments of agriculture and our local agricultural college. And a lot of it from our county agent.
And this is the information that Dad takes so lightly?
Don't let Dad fool you. He makes good use of it. He likes to pretend that he depends on experience alone. Talks Lonnie into doing a lot of his paperwork, then kids him about it.
That figures age has its privileges.
But he's already planted a cash crop, soybeans. The outlook indicates that he's going to have a good year.
And if everything turns out all right, he'll take credit for having good instinct. But forget about all the work you did in helping him pick the crop.
There's a lot more to it than what I've told you, but then you'll be around for a few days.
That can wait. I'm tired. Let's call it a night. It is late.
Well, that looks pretty good, Frank. I'll go down and take my pose by the fence. Lonnie isn't here, you know. His milk parlor keeps him busy. But I'll take my place.
You seem awful eager, Dad. I told you I'm almost finished. You don't have to stand down there anymore.
Well, now, it isn't every day a man finds himself on the cover of a national magazine. I just want you to paint so the neighbors will recognize me.
Sometimes you surprise me, Dad. Yesterday you were pretty natural. But today all you want to do is ham it up.
Well, if you don't need me anymore, I'll go over to see Lonnie.
Frankie, take my painting in the house and take care of it.
Hey, wait for me.
I'm keeping careful records on everything I do. Now, these charts, along with my other records, I figure feed costs and breeding schedules, and even the amount of milk I should be getting, comparing my results with those of other farmers.
Dairying's getting to be a very exacting science, isn't it?
That's about it with a milk herd.
Well, if it isn't the wealthy Mr. Tyree. To what do we owe the pleasure?
Thank you, Carol. It's always nice when one farmer recognizes the innate talents of another. Afternoon, Lonnie.
Hi, Chef.
How are you, Frank?
Heard
you
you.
in town? Gonna be around long?
Just a couple days. Now, what's this I hear about the wealthy Mr. Tyree?
Well, you see, just because we've had a moderate success in our small hog operation, certain of our neighbors have come to regard us as some kind of a financial tycoon. Can't say as we're adverse to the role. In fact, we rather enjoy it. Your father is one of the principal advertisers of our recent good fortune, and for the prestige it has brought us, we thank you.
You might also mention to Frank that I'm one of your principal advisors. Just a matter of giving credit where credit is due.
Well, in that case, we will make an effort to put things in their proper perspective. You see, your father was very generous with his advice. Advice which consisted in the main of a lot of homely old sayings about pigs. Honesty forces us to admit that a good part of our success is due to our ability to analyze and digest the long-term outlook and the market reports.
Now it comes out in the open, huh?
Well, you ought to know, Lonnie, the reports are always out in the open. But of course, interpretation, well, that is a matter of individual skill. Now, let me explain it quite simply. The marketing service gives the information in 3 areas: the past, the future, and the present, in that order. Oh, may we borrow your pencil for a minute, Carl?
Oh, you've already got it.
Why, so I have. Now, specialists of the Agricultural Marketing Service have studied the figures for all the past years, and they've used those figures to plot a curve. A curve that shows that the peak months for hog marketing have always been December and January, and April and May.
Well, what about the future?
Now we come to that. First, we look at the demand and price outlook for hogs and other meat. Then, with an eye to what other farmers are planning, we set our breeding schedules to send our hogs to market when it's not flooded with other farmers' hogs. So, on an inverse curve, as we say, we plan to market our hogs at a time when the supply is lowest. Now, that's probably the time when the price will be highest. And this we check by following closely the present. That is, the daily market reports. So there you have it. In a word, elementary.
He's doing what every farmer should do. More power to you, Shep.
Next thing they'll be saying, the pencil is mightier than the plow.
A very good phrase, Carl. We'll consider using it in future discussions of this kind. Now, Lonnie, you'll find that we've returned your power clippers, so we thank you for their use, and come and see us, Frank, while you're around.
I can't do it this time, Shep, but maybe next time I'm home, huh?
Thanks again for the use of the clipper. Well, so long.
So long, Shep. Don't let that old goat fool you. He's one of the best farmers in the state, and the hardest working, too.
Which reminds me, we've got quite a bit of it to do around here. Shall we get at it?
The last of this year's crop, and if I do say it, it's been a pretty good year.
Well, we can't kick, can we? My hunch about soybeans turned out all right.
And that's not all. I always thought it would take 5 years for you to do any good with that milk herd. You've done better than I expected. Lonnie, you're a farmer.
Coming from you, Dad, that's a real compliment.
You know, Lonnie, I wouldn't have done half as well without your pencil.
Forget it. Hey, here comes Edie with the mail.
Got the mail for you. Yeah? There's a letter here from Frank.
Good, read it to us.
All right. Hold it. Dear Dad, under separate cover, I'm sending you a copy of the magazine. I don't know why, but they didn't buy the picture of you and Lonnie on the roof.
What? Let me see that. I guess it's just one of those unpredictables. Fortunately, I had a rough sketch on a current subject that turned out to be quite acceptable to them. It seems that the modern farmer needs a sharp pencil. So I finished the sketch and sold it at a very good price.
And here's the sketch.
Well, I'll be gosh darned.